Well, good evening, everyone, and I'm glad that everyone could make it on such a beautiful night. But there's nothing better than talking about energy and our future. We're going to do both here tonight. A little introduction, just in case there's anyone here who doesn't know me. A few years back, I directed a movie called Gas Odyssey. Also made a film called Silent No More. And the last film I worked on was called The Gathering Storm. I've also worked on a project at Cannonsville, which is yet to be completed. I'm here tonight to discuss a platform I've written for Secession and discuss where Secession will be going in the weeks and months ahead. A few weeks back, I was on WPEL and I made a call to organize a convention for Secession, both to pick the leadership of the movement and also to draft a platform. My mom has been working on organizing a meeting to select delegates and to make this convention happen. When you mention secession to people, a lot of people think it's a great idea, but they don't believe it can happen. I would refer people to history, our history and world history. Since the dawn of time, humans held slaves. Yet in our country, in the 1860s, we abolished slavery. There's no more slaves in America, and also slavery is now illegal in every other country in the world. There was a time in this country when women couldn't vote. Women finally got the vote after World War I. And now women can vote, and they can hold office, just as my mom does as town supervisor of Windsor, New York. As everyone knows, humans, since the beginning of human civilization, have enjoyed a drink now and then. Yet in this country, we banned alcohol for over a decade through the efforts of the temperance movement. Of course, eventually, the prohibition on alcohol was repealed. That shows you the strength of an idea, that something is intrinsic to our culture can be banned because people were passionate enough to get out and fight for the prohibition of alcohol. When people think of secession, a lot of people think it's a fight we can't win. But it's a fight we can win. When the idea first came up of secession, it was supposed to be the towns and villages along the border with PA. And it made a lot of sense at first. There was a lot of support, but there also became a lot of resistance from the powers that be in Albany. So I decided to, shall we say, improve on the idea and go for it all. I would like all of upstate New York to be able to join Pennsylvania and get out of a state which doesn't work now, which won't work in the future, and which hasn't worked for the residents of this area for decades. You know, I was born in Binghamton, New York in 1971. I think a lot of people in the audience are a bit older than me. And I want you to think back to when this area started deteriorating, started falling apart a long time ago. And it's going to keep falling apart because nothing can change up in Albany. You know, why do I think nothing can change in Albany? A few years back, I was invited up to Albany by a friend of mine, and she wanted me to speak with, assemblymen and senators up there. And while I was with her, a lobbyist came up to her and gave her his business card and asked if the organization she represented hired lobbyists. And she said no, they did their own lobbying. He was incredulous. He said, how do you expect then to get anything done in Albany? Albany's political culture is 100% corrupt. All you have to do is look at the headlines in the newspaper. We have one of the most corrupt states in the nation. And unfortunately, that's going to be next to impossible to change because of the party politics, the Democratic Party, just the whole pervasive corruption up in Albany. I see secession as the answer because I know Pennsylvania is not perfect, but Pennsylvania is a much more balanced state. Rural areas in Pennsylvania, rural areas like the rural area I'm from, which is Windsor, New York, have a lot more say in what goes on in Harrisburg than Windsor, New York now has up in Albany. And as we all know, Pennsylvania allows fracking. Pennsylvania supports gas drilling. And Pennsylvania allows landowners like you to develop their mineral rights and profit from the land that you've paid taxes on for decades. You know, one of the principles that this country was founded on was no taxation without representation. Well, where I'm from, we have a great Assemblyman, Clifford Crouch. We have a great Senator, Thomas Libas. But in a sense, I don't have any representation up in Albany, because both gentlemen find it next to impossible to get us our mineral rights because of how bad things are up in Albany. You know, if you're in a bad situation, you try and change it. But if you can't change it, you get out of that situation. The best thing I think we can do is to join Pennsylvania. Secession, though, is about a lot more than just gas drilling or issues of corruption in the moment. It's about the future. It's about what will happen for generations to come. When you look at our state, developing the Marcellus might take 40, 50, 60 years. This change will be for hundreds of years, and it's a positive change. It's also a legal change. It's in the United States Constitution that part of one state can join another. You know, I brought some books with me just to serve as reference points as I spoke with you. I have a book here called The Revolutionary Age of Andrew Jackson. When Andrew Jackson was president, he was the first president to really use the veto power. Up until that point, there have been about 20 presidential vetoes. It was certainly legal in the Constitution for a president to veto legislation. But before him, presidents used that power sparingly. He's the one who really made the veto a part of American politics. And as you well know, presidents now veto routinely legislation that crosses their desk. It's in the Constitution that a part of one state can join another with the approval of the legislatures of both states and also the approval of the United States Congress. It's time that we use the power that great men who wrote the Constitution, such as Benjamin Franklin, put in there for us to use. You know, one of the big goals that I have with secession, whether it works or doesn't work, is to put pressure upon New York City to change how they act toward us here in Upstate. New York City has taken a lot of our resources, particularly water, and denied us access to one of our best resources, the Marcellus Shale. New York City should compensate communities that live around its reservoirs for the economic loss from the presence of those reservoirs. By compensation, I mean, if they won't let you drill, give you the money for your mineral rights. If they make it difficult for industry or other businesses to function in those communities, pay those communities for that economic loss. This is about fairness. This is about justice. This is about what our country was founded on. And you know, each of you has in front of you a copy of my platform. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. After I'm done taking questions, my mom would like to speak, and I know Dan mentioned he'd like to say a few things as well. Mr. Furman.
Why do we have to succeed from New York? Why can't we do what they did in Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia and Virginia separated? Why can't we remain the state of New York and let New York City be the District of New York City?
Well, here's the thing with that.
No answer.
Well, here's the thing. You know, I wrote a piece on New Amsterdam, which Dan has read, and Mr. Boyle has read, and probably a few other people. I don't really believe in semi-autonomous regions. If you look at European history, Sicily was granted a form of autonomy after World War II with their own president and parliament and sweeping powers. And all it did for Sicily was create a cesspool of corruption and allow on the mainland the Christian Democrats, who were neither Christians nor Democrats, to misrule Italy for decades. If we were to embrace a proposal like New Amsterdam for our state, basically all that would happen would be another layer of bureaucracy, another layer of government, and nothing would change. Because there's no way in hell, excuse the French, that New York City is just going to give us our mineral rights, give us our water, and allow us to go our own way in some semi-autonomous region. It would just literally be a way to waste the taxpayers' money. As for some other arrangement, political arrangement, other than New Amsterdam, it's in the Constitution what we can do. We must obey the Constitution, or we'd have to amend the Constitution. And it's a lot easier to obey the Constitution than to try and amend it.
Isn't it true that we need 810,000 signatures to be heard in Congress?
You know, I'm not sure of the exact figure. The whole process, you know, one of the reasons why I'm calling for a convention is so that a lot of different groups can get together. We can raise money for legal resources. I know we've got a great lawyer with the JLC. It's so that we can do this the right way. And I want everyone's input. And you know, this is not just about landowners, although landowners are going to be a huge part of this. It's also about people who are concerned about gun rights. The state's abysmal for gun rights. It's also about people who, you know, just want freedom. I don't think New York State is a particularly free state. And economic freedom is a huge part of freedom. You know, you can't consider yourself a free person if you don't have the right to start a business, or if the government that controls your area makes it impossible for your business to thrive and grow and put you out of business. What we want is a change. I believe the best way to get that change is following what's in the Constitution and also calling for a convention and organizing this the right way. Sir.
If one of the constitutional requirements to secession is the authorization of both legislatures in the states, based on the corruption that's in Albany today, how would you pull that off to get them to agree to secession?
Well, a couple things. First of all, you study the history of secessionist movements globally. The only way secession works is if an outside power backs the group within, for instance, like a state like ours, to attain their freedom. We're very lucky that there is serious interest in Pennsylvania in this idea. But what people in Harrisburg are waiting for is for us to act, for us to write letters to them saying that we're interested in pursuing secession, and for us to get organized in a serious way and show them that we want secession. That's why I want a convention, because I believe in following established protocols and procedure in our democracy. If Harrisburg jumps on board, and if we get support across all of Upstate, we can actually put enough pressure in Albany to get us out of the state. And it won't be easy, but most things in life that are desirable are not easy. I don't think it was very easy to end slavery. There's no more slaves in the United States. You know, I don't think it was easy for women to get the vote, but they got it.
No.
And it is certainly very easy, certainly possible for us to put enough pressure on Albany to make them do what the public wants. You know, I have a saying, you can't govern the ungovernable. If people are educated, people become active, and we take the right steps, we can force Albany to let us go. Hey, think about the 60s and civil rights in the South. You had a culture of violence and fear that had been roughly maintained for over 100 years. Yet those people were able to assert their rights and get their rights. I don't think it was easy for them, but they had a lot more to overcome with the civil rights movement than we have to overcome getting out of New York State.